Thanks very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Delighted to be here because if I was at home, I'd be rowing with my 16-year-old son who supports Napoli. I support Arsenal, so it's much safer being here. Larry gave us a fantastic display of rhetoric there and catchphrases that were thrown out that I hope will not fool you and impress you. I just want to turn around point by point to diffuse some of the accusations and some of the arguments made by the no side in this debate. Just to lay the groundwork for those of you who mightn't be that familiar with the Irish political system, the Seanad consists of 60 members, 11 are appointed by the Taoiseach, 3 from Trinity College Dublin, 3 from the National University of Ireland, and then we have 43 who are elected on 5 vocational panels. And there are politicians going around this country who have 7 or 8 votes in those vocational panels because of various positions they hold in what is an elitist political system in this country. At the moment, Fine Gael has 19 members of the Seanad, Fianna Fáil has 14, Labour has 11, Sinn Féin 3 and Independents 13. And you can see from that there is an inbuilt government majority here. So anybody who might suggest that the Seanad is a democratic institution is missing the point. And anybody who would suggest that abolishing the Seanad is anti-democratic is also missing the point. It is totally elitist, it is totally anti-democratic. 4% of the electorate is eligible to vote. The current Seanad was voted for by just over 1% of the population. We have, by far in my view, too many politicians in this country, and I don't know how Larry can possibly stand up and defend politicians as a noble class of some sort. I mean, the political system in this country has failed us, particularly the Fianna Fáil and Green variety of our political system that is currently trying to preserve the anti-democratic Seanad. The average number of politicians in countries of Ireland's size, 4 to 6 million people, and we're obviously close to the lower end of that scale. The average number of politicians is 170. We have 226 politicians in this country, the Dáil plus the Seanad. If you look at countries that have a unicameral system, countries like Denmark, Finland, Norway, very successful countries, very successful democracies. New Zealand, Denmark, Sweden, Portugal have all abolished their upper house in recent years, and that decision is not regretted by anybody. Typically, countries that have bicameral systems are large countries. They are countries that tend to have a federalist structure, such as Germany, France, Italy, the United States. Ireland is neither large nor is Ireland a federalist system. On the issue of the savings, I totally agree with the points that were made, and I would have serious problems with part of the government campaign in relation to the Seanad. We're in the middle of the biggest economic crisis that this country has experienced in decades, if not in our history. And yet the Taoiseach turns around and appoints the minister with responsibility for employment to run this referendum campaign. It does show a strange set of priorities. And also the focus on the 20 million is totally irrelevant in my view. We're going to spend 54 billion running the country this year. To argue that saving 20 million is good is utter bullshit. There's no doubt about that. Not to mention the arguments about how, whether the figure is correct or not. The point about Fine Gael literature, in fairness, is that it says that the 20 million in savings will accrue over time. That's very different than saying that it's going to be saved in 1 year. Accruing over time per year. But as I say, the money thing is totally irrelevant. I wouldn't mind spending multiples of that on a political institution that actually works, that functions. But the Seanad certainly does not do that. So I think to focus on the money argument has been totally misplaced, it has been totally wrong. Another argument, and I see Larry is going around with catchy posters tonight about a power grab. This is not a power grab. The Seanad doesn't have any power. So how can you grab power from an institution that actually doesn't have any power? It can block, it can delay, but it cannot veto legislation. I'm involved in the civil society organisation called One House, and when we got together we were looking at like-minded people that would get involved in this campaign, which is totally apolitical, which is not funded by anybody other than contributions we made ourselves. But I rang a friend of mine who's a political lobbyist, thinking that he might have some interesting suggestions about people who get involved in this very noble campaign. And I was amazed that he was totally opposed to the abolition of the Seanad, because as a political lobbyist, he sees it, and his clients, more importantly, see the Seanad as just another opportunity for lobbying, which is one of the most negative aspects of the Irish political system. Another point about the Seanad: if it's so bloody good, why do so many people, talented people, at the first opportunity seek to leave it? You look at David Norris with his failed presidential campaign, you look at Mary Robinson, you look at Senator Shane Ross. People like that, if the Seanad is so effective, if it's so good, why at the first opportunity do they try and get out? And Michael McDowell's perspective on this I find really interesting, because I have a photograph of McDowell in Sandymount during the 90s handing out election literature, and the first point on his literature was abolish the Seanad. So to suggest that Enda Kenny thought up this referendum and the abolition of the Seanad on a whim, well, you look at Michael McDowell, where did he come up with his arguments? He also once described it as a cross between a political rest home and a creche. I mean, is that bullshit, excuse my language. The issue about reform of the Seanad, and it is really important for you going out to vote on Friday, and incidentally you won't get to vote for the Seanad because you're in the wrong university, but that's kind of irrelevant. But the issue about the vote on Friday, you are not being asked to reform the Seanad, you are being asked to preserve it or abolish it. But what would reform of the Seanad mean? If you look at what Zapponi and Virgil Quinn have come up with, and basically an institution that has more power, where everybody has a vote. So why do we want to elect two Dáils? We already get the opportunity to elect one Dáil. Why do we turn around and elect another Dáil? If we create a new reformed Seanad that is based on the US system of checks and balances, I mean, what is that going to lead to? For a country of Ireland's size, it is going to create total political and policy-making gridlock. I do believe that once we win this referendum on Friday, and there's a yes vote, the Seanad is abolished, we then need to move on and push for political reform of the Dáil. And I really do believe that the whip system needs to be fundamentally changed. I do believe that the committee system needs to be fundamentally changed to bring in expertise from people like John Brown and so on into policy making, but not through the elected route. So just to summarise, it's an outmoded, ineffective organisation that is totally elitist. The Senate has not been reformed for 75 years. So can we really believe that if the Seanad is preserved after Friday, suddenly we're all going to start talking about reform? When Fianna Fáil, as is the hypocritical nature of that failed political entity, when Fianna Fáil argues for reform of the Seanad at this stage, in 2009, when given the opportunity to input into reform of the Seanad, Fianna Fáil input nothing, claimed it was too busy. God damn it, they now turn around. They're the zealots about reform of the Seanad. When given the opportunity, they did absolutely nothing about it. That is political populism. It's hypocrisy of the worst type, in my view. I think it's also important to remember that under the Constitution, the government is answerable to the Dáil. It is not answerable to the Seanad. Okay, and I think that is a really important point in terms of the rubbish arguments made about the power grab. The government is responsible to the elected Dáil, not to the Seanad. That is a point worth reiterating. Another argument that's made is about, if we get rid of the Seanad, we get rid of the independents that have added so much colour to our political system over the decades. The bottom line is, if you look at the number of independents we have in our Dáil, Ireland, as a percentage of elected representatives, has one of the highest numbers of independents in any elected parliament around the world. So we already have a Dáil that is characterised by lots of independents. My final point would be, as you go out on Friday, just remember that this is a vote to abolish. It is not a vote to reform. Thank you very much for your attention.